Welcome to Breathe Well Coaching. We're here to help you connect within from the comfort of your own home to help you overcome stress and anxiety through guided breath work, mindful meditation, and somatic movement practices like yoga and Pilates. You can also partner with one of our certified health and wellness coaches so that you can make positive, lasting, and sustainable changes in your health and well-being. For more details, check out breathewellcoaching.com.
Hi, welcome to Breathe Well Coaching. My name is Coach Erin, and today I want to give you 3 tips to answer the question, how can I breathe better? So I was looking on Google and I was speaking to a new group of people, and one of the first questions I was asked was, how do I breathe well? How do I breathe better? That was certainly a question I was trying to answer myself when I was experiencing panic attacks and hyperventilation syndrome and a lot of air hunger and really disordered, dysregulated breathing a few years ago. I knew I was breathing wrong because I had had an extensive history and education as a physiologist, and I've been teaching yoga and Pilates for a very long time prior to having all these disordered breathing patterns. So I knew my breathing was off, yet when I went to the doctor, they just said, you're anxious, here's a pill, take this. I didn't take the pill. I actually decided to do an inventory of my lifestyle and really learn how to breathe well, how to breathe not in a stressed state, but in a way that's gonna really help me manage my nervous system and help me balance out from feeling overwhelmed and stressed. So now in the face of a lot of stress, fear, anxiety, I'm able to, at very least, breathe well in a way that's going to support my body. So I want to give you 3 ways that you can breathe better today. The first is really simple, but you'd be surprised how many people overlook the power of nasal breathing. I want you to breathe through your nose. Now, when you breathe through your nose, not your mouth, when I'm breathing through my mouth, I automatically have a more shallow breathing pattern. We don't want a shallow breathing pattern. That's gonna upregulate the nervous system. It's also gonna make you use your secondary breathing muscles, like your neck and shoulders, for that movement. That primary breathing muscle is the respiratory diaphragm. It's down here. It's underneath the rib cage, and we need it to flatten out when we inhale, which kind of creates this stretching effect. That leads us into the next breathing tip, which is your breathing pattern. So first I want you to shut your mouth and breathe through your nose. At low to moderate exercise, when you're sleeping at night, and if you have trouble with this, there's mouth tape, which is really easy to use to keep a nasal breathing pattern. And also, as you're just like in front of a screen, or for me, like when I'm getting my kids ready in the morning, I tend to get a little rush and I'll notice I'm mouth breathing. That would be an indicator to me that I'm breathing in a stress breathing pattern. I need to shut my mouth and I need to breathe well. So those are just areas that I see mouth breathing come into play. Certainly when you're exercising, be aware of if you're mouth breathing at a lower moderate intensity. When you start to push it really hard, doing sprints, maybe like a really hard lift, you might slip into a mouth breathing pattern. That's pretty normal. That's a high intensity. That happens. But I'm talking about lower to moderate intensity exercise, even strength training. Breathe in through the nose, and you can exhale out of the mouth if you like. The next tip is to be mindful of paradoxical breathing habits. Paradoxical just means reversed breathing. This is the function of your respiratory diaphragm. So your respiratory diaphragm is like the mothership. It's the coolest muscle in the body, and it has these 2 holes in it that allow the vagus nerve to pass through and connections to your heart muscle. That's why breathing can change your blood pressure and change your heart rate. That connection. Also, really important, our vagus nerve is the nerve that is really connected to the parasympathetic nervous system state. All the things that the parasympathetic nervous system does, like rest, digest, helps us restore, helps us recover, helps us feel calm, helps us feel grounded. So that's our parasympathetic nervous system state. We need that. We really need that if we're feeling stressed and anxious. So when you breathe using the respiratory diaphragm correctly, you're going to increase your vagal tone in a positive way. You want high vagal tone. You're also going to balance out your heart and just like the breathing pace and all the good things. Okay, so this is what I want. On your inhale, you should have the respiratory diaphragm flatten out. That means it moves down. This is what I see a lot of people doing. They're inhaling like this, vertically. rising up on the inhale. When you inhale and you vertically rise up, you're not allowing for this respiratory diaphragm to open up horizontally. It's got to flatten out. When you inhale, rise up, it pulls up higher up into this rib cage, and that is what I call an inhalation pattern, where you're just, and you keep reaching up. You'll feel it if you're constantly sucking in on your inhale. That's a good way to notice if this is a pattern you have. It's a very common pattern too. Women, if you have had children, if you've carried a child to the 3rd trimester, then your respiratory diaphragm has moved up to create space for the baby. And a lot of women get stuck in this inhalation pattern. That's why they're breathing really shallow, short, kind of rapid breaths towards the end of their pregnancy when they're feeling super uncomfortable. This is the reason why your respiratory diaphragm kind of moves up a little bit. And so we have to work even more on flattening it out and restoring that good breathing pattern in the postpartum period. I help a lot of clients do that. I'm certified for pregnancy and postpartum corrective exercise specialist, and I do a lot of work with the respiratory diaphragm during pregnancy, but also more so after. So working on not sucking in on the inhale, doing that paradoxical breathing pattern, but allowing the respiratory diaphragm to flatten out, activate, contract on that inhale. And this opens up the ribs. They kind of externally rotate, they open up. You get a stretch in the low back area, or the mid back, as well as the low back. You even get a little bit of a belly stretch. So it's not all belly breathing. And I want to be really clear that I'm not teaching belly breathing. I'm teaching a 360-degree expansive breath using the respiratory diaphragm as your primary breathing muscle. All right? Your chest will rise a little bit too. That's totally normal. We also get a little stretch, and there's a diaphragm down here in the pelvic floor as well. We get a little stretch on that pelvic floor and the butt area. So all those muscles down there, if you suck in on the inhale, think what's tightening up. So this is the wrong way to breathe. You're tightening up the belly, you're tightening up the low back, you're tightening up the pelvic floor and the butt. So everything kind of tightens up. That signals to your body, we got to prepare. We fight, flight, or freeze. We, need to send all the hormones, all the endorphin, like everything, all the chemicals that need to be flooded out into the body to prepare ourselves for fight, flight, or freeze is happening. This is very stressful. It's very stressful to your body. That's why in my program, my 60-day Breathe Well, Live Well coaching program, we don't just work on the breath. We also work on all of your wellness holistically. I want to know what thoughts, what emotions are feeding into these behaviors that are causing you to breathe stressfully. So we get really aware of why you're changing your breathing pattern, and we also get education on how to breathe more functionally for your life and how to slip out of those anxiety, panic attacks, air hunger, some of the breathing pattern disorders that accompany anxiety. So that's really my goal there. We have mouth breathing. We want to move to nasal breathing. We have paradoxical breathing. We want to learn how to use the respiratory diaphragm, activate it, and make that the default breathing muscle. And then finally, I'm going to talk about stomach gripping, gut sucking, pulling your belly in all the time. If my belly is pulled in all the time, that puts pressure down on the pelvic floor and the butt area. That's not good. We don't want that. It also, if you're pulling the belly in all the time, you're kind of gripping here in these upper abs, are you able to use your respiratory diaphragm well? Are you able to flatten out that muscle and kind of get that pressure to expand, create intra-abdominal pressure to expand? No. We want to make sure that we're aware of our stomach gripping. If you have a pattern of pulling the belly in, whether you're in front of TV, washing your hair, making food, just throughout your daily life, if you use it as a mechanism in exercise, I see it a lot where somebody's just like, okay, pull the belly in. That's a stomach gripping tendency where I need you to be able to inhale, expand, and exhale, brace, and learn how to breathe under a brace. That's more technical, but it's definitely safer for your body versus just sucking your belly in to build strength or have strength or just as a habit. So those are my 3 tips for ways you can breathe more functionally that can be really helpful for you, whether you exercise, whether you have anxiety or not, or breathing pattern disorder. hopefully all of these tips would be really helpful for you.